All right, what's up, guys? We're back again, and we're going in chapter 38 today. So I'm pretty excited because I know we're in the story of Joseph being sold into slavery by his brothers, and they told their dad that he was killed, I think by animal or something like that. And this is about to get good. So let's get right into this. Let's get right into it. All right. So remember, I'm reading from the Christian Standard Bible, CSB. So if you want to follow along, that's cool. If not, no worries. But like I told you guys in previous videos, this is just for me. I want to read, and I'm going to read the whole Bible. This is the goal of this. And this keep me accountable to really doing it, because I've already done this plenty of times in the past where I told God I was going to read it. And I started to read and stop, and then life gets in the way. But me posting these videos every day, or almost every day, like makes me read. So I'm glad that God gave me this idea to do this, because I'll just keep doing what I normally do. So I gotta use the tools to my advantage to make sure I do what I'm supposed to do. So all right, chapter 38, Genesis chapter 38. So at the time, let me put this headphone away. It's getting tired of my ear. Okay. It's been getting good, though. These stories are honestly good. It is hot in here, but you know what? It's going to be cool. I think I might turn my fan on, actually, before we get started, because it's kind of warm in here. Let me turn my fan real quick. Hopefully, it's not going to get in the way or get it on audio, but if it is, whatever. Oh, much better. Okay. So, chapter 38. At the time, Judah left his brothers and settled near Adulamite, named Herah. There, Judah saw the daughter of Canaanite named Shua. He took her as a wife and slept with her. She conceived and gave birth to a son, and he named him She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. She gave birth to another son and named him Shelah. And it was Chezbi that she gave birth to him. Judah got a wife named for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Now Judah's firstborn, was evil in the Lord's sight, and the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, "Sleep with your brother's wife, perform your duty as her brother-in-law, and produce offspring for your brother." But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he released his semen on the ground so that he would not produce offspring for his brother. What he did was evil in the Lord's sight, so he put him to death also. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up," for he thought he might die too like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. Verse 12. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. When Judah had finished mourning, he and his friend Hira, the Adulamite, went to Timnah to his sheep shearers. Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is going to Timnah to shear his sheep." So she took off the widow's clothes, veiled her face, covered herself, and sat at the entrance of Anaim, which is on the way to Timnah. For she saw that, though Shelah had grown up, she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, my eye's burning. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He went over to her and said, "Come, let me sleep with you," for he did not know that was his daughter-in-law. When she said, "What will you give me for sleeping with me?" "I will send you a young goat from my flock," he replied. But she said, "Only if you leave something with me until you send it." "What should I give you?" he asked. She answered, "Your signet ring, your cord, and the staff in your hand." So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. She got up and left, then removed her veil and put on her widow's clothes back on. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend Adulamite, in order to get back the items he had left with the woman, he could not find her. He asked the men at the place, "Where is the cult prostitute who was beside the road of Anaim?" "There has been no cult prostitute here," they answered. So the Adulamite returned to Judah, saying, "I could not find her, and besides, the men of the place said, 'There is no cult prostitute here.'" Judah replied, "Let her keep the items for herself. Otherwise we will become a laughing stock. After all, I did send this young goat, but you couldn't find her." After 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has been acting like a prostitute, and now she is pregnant. Bring her out," Judah said, "and let her be burned to death." Verse 25. As she was being brought out, she sent her father-in-law this message: "I am pregnant by a man to whom these items belong." And she added, "Examine them. Whose signet, ring, cord, and staff are these?" Judah recognized them and said, "She is more in the right than I am, since I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he did not know her intimately again." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twins in the womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand, and the midwife took it and tied a scarf thread around it, announcing, "This one came out first." But then he pulled his hand back out, and came his brother, and she said, "What a breakout you have made for yourself." So he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread tied to his hand, came out, and his name is Zerah. So Joseph in Potiphar's house. So now Joseph had been taken to Egypt. We're on chapter 39, by the way. Joseph had been taken to Egypt. An Egyptian named Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guards, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, serving in the household of the Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord made everything he did successful, Joseph found favor with his master and became his personal attendant. Potiphar also put him in charge of his household and placed all that he owned under his authority. From the time that he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house because of Joseph. The Lord's blessing was on all that he owned, in the house and in the fields. He left all that he owned under Joseph's authority, and he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Around verse 7. Now, or verse 6 going into 7. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. After some time, his master's wife looked longingly at Joseph and said, "Sleep with me." But he refused. "Look," he said to his master's wife, "with me here, my master does not concern himself with anything in his house, and he has put all that he owns under my authority. No one in the house is greater than I am. He has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. So how could I do this immense evil, and how could I sin against God?" Although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her. Now, one day, he went into the house to do his work, and none of the household servants were there. She grabbed him by his garment and said, "Sleep with me." But leaving his garment in her hand, he escaped and ran outside. When she saw that he had left his garment with her, and he had ran outside, she called her house servants and said, "Look, look." She said to them, "My husband brought a Hebrew man to make fools of us. He came to me so he could sleep with me, and I screamed as loud as I could. When he heard me screaming for help, he left his garment beside me and ran outside." She put Joseph's garment beside her until the master came home. Then she told him the same story. "The Hebrew slave that you brought to us to make a fool of me. But when I screamed for help, he left his garment beside me and ran outside." When the master heard the story of his wife, when the master heard the story his wife told him, "These are the things your slave did to me," he was furious, and he had him thrown in prison where the king's prisoners were confined. So Joseph was there in prison. Joseph now is in prison. Verse 21. But the Lord was with Joseph and extended kindness to him. He granted him favor with the prison warden. The warden put all the prisoners who were in the prison under Joseph's authority, and he was responsible for everything that was done there. The warden did not bother with anything under Joseph's authority because the Lord was with him, and the Lord made everything that he did successful. Chapter 40 now. Joseph interprets two prisoners' dreams. That's the title. After this, the king of Egypt's cupbearer and baker offered their master, the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with the two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody of the house of the captain of the guards, and the prison on where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guards assigned Joseph to them as their personal attendant, and they were in custody for some time. Verse 5. The king of Egypt's cupbearer and baker, who were confined in the prison, each had a dream. Both had a dream on the same night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they looked distraught. So he asked Pharaoh's officers, who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We had dreams," they said to him, but there was no one to interpret them. Then Joseph said to them, Don't interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dream." So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph. "In my dream there was a vine in front of me. On the vine there were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms came out, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. This is its interpretation," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days, and in just 3 days Pharaoh will lift your head and restore you to your position. You will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand the way you used to put it when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well for you, remember that I was with you. Please show kindness to me by mentioning me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. For I was kidnapped from the land of Hebrews, and even here I've done nothing that they should put me in this dungeon." When the chief baker saw that and the interpretation was positive, he said to Joseph, "I also had a dream. 3 baskets of white bread were in my head, and the top basket were sorts of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." "This is the interpretation," Joseph replied. "The 3 baskets are 3 days, and in the 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from off you and hang you on a tree. Then the birds will eat your flesh from your body. On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he gave a feast for all his servants. He elevated the chief cupbearer and the chief baker among his servants. Pharaoh restored the chief cupbearer in his position as cupbearer, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hands. But Pharaoh hanged the chief baker just as Joseph had explained to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph. He forgot him." That's cold-blooded to do that, you know what I'm saying? Chapter 41. Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dream. At the end of the 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing beside the Nile when 7 healthy-looking, well-fed cows came up from the Nile and began to graze among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows, sickly and thin, came up from the Nile and stood beside the cows along the bank of the Nile. The sickly, thin cows ate the healthy, well-fed cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep and dreamed a second time. The 7 heads of grain, plump and good, came up on one stalk. After them, 7 heads of grain, then and scorched by the east wind, sprouted up. And then the heads of the grain swallowed up 7 plump, full ones. Then Pharaoh woke up, and it was only a dream. When the morning came, he was troubled, so he summoned all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men. Pharaoh had told them his dream, but no one could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I remember my faults." He said, "Oh, I remember." Pharaoh was angry with his servants, and he put me, the chief baker, in custody of the captain of the guards. He and I had dreams on the same night. Each dream had its own meaning. Now a young Hebrew, a slave of the captain of the guards, was with us there. He told them our dreams, and he interpreted our dreams for us, and each had its own interpretation. It turned out just the way he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was hanged. Then Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and they quickly brought him to the dungeon. He shaved, changed his clothes, and he went to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have had a dream, but no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said about you that you can hear a dream and interpret it. I am not able to," Joseph answered Pharaoh. "It is God who gave Pharaoh a favorable answer." So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile when 7 well-fed, healthy-looking cows came up from the Nile River grazing among the reed. After them, then 7 other cows, weak, very sickly, and then came up. I never seen such sickly ones in all the land of Egypt. Then the sickly cows ate the first 7 well-fed cows. When they all had devoured them, you could not tell that they had devoured them. Their appearance was as bad as it was before. Then I woke up. In my dream, I also saw 7 heads of grain full of good coming from one stalk. After them, 7 heads of bad, withered then and scorched by the east wind, sprouted up. Verse 24. The then heads of grain swallowed the 7 good ones. I told this to the magicians, but no one can tell me what it means. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dreams mean that the same thing. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads are 7 years. But the dreams mean the same thing. The 7 then sickly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 worthless scorched heads of grain are 7 years of famine. It is just as I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt. After them, 7 years of famine will take place, and all the abundance in the land of Egypt will be forgotten. The famine will devastate the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered because of the famine that follows it. For the famine will be very severe. Since the dream was given twice to Pharaoh, it means that the matter had been determined by God, and he will carry it out soon. So now, let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this. Let him appoint overseers over the land and take a fifth of the harvest of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance, and let them gather all the excess food during the good years that are coming. Under Pharaoh's authority, store the grain in the cities so that they may preserve it as food. The food will be reserved for when the land during the 7 years of famine that would take place in the land of Egypt. Then the country will not be wiped out by the famine. Verse 37, it says, Joseph is exalted. The proposal pleased Pharaoh and all of his servants, and he said to them, "Can we find anyone like this man who has God's spirit in him?" So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one as discerning and as wise as you are. You will be over my house and all of my people, and I will obey your commands. Only I, as king, will be greater than you." Pharaoh also said to Joseph, "See, I am placing you over all the land of Egypt." Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and put it in Joseph's hand, clothed him with fine linen garments, and placed a gold chain around his neck. He had Joseph ride in the second chariot, and servants called out before him, make way," said. So he placed him over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and no one will be able to raise his hand or foot in all the Egypt without your permission." Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphenath Paneah and gave him a wife. The name is Asnath, daughter of Potiphar, priest at On. And Joseph went throughout the land of Egypt. Verse 46. Joseph's administration. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Joseph left Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout the land of Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced outstanding harvest. Joseph gathered all the excess food in the land of Egypt during the 7 years and put it in the cities. He put the food in every city from the fields around it. So Joseph stored up the grain in such abundance, like the sand of the sea. He had stopped measuring it because it was beyond measure. 2 sons were born to Joseph before the years of famine arrived. Aseneth, daughter of Potiphar, priest at On, bore them to him. Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh. I think that's how you say it, Manasseh, and said, "God has made me forget all my hardship and my whole family." And the second son he named is Ephraim, and said, "God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction." Then the 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began. Just as Joseph had said, there is famine in every land, but in the whole land of Egypt there was food. When the whole land of Egypt was stricken with famine, the people cried out to Pharaoh for food, and Pharaoh told all Egypt, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." Now the famine had spread across the whole region, so Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Every land came to Joseph in Egypt to buy grain for the famine that was severe in the land. Now Joseph's brother in Egypt now. This is crazy because remember, they sold him because they're mad because he had the dream that he was going to be serving, or he was going to be over them, being Lord and Master over them. And here we are now, 7, however many years later, and it comes true. When Jacob learned, chapter 42, when Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you keep looking at each other? Listen," he went on, "I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us so that we will live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy this last chapter I'm going to read, to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he thought something might happen to him. The sons of Israel were among those who came to buy grain, for the famine was in who came to buy grain, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Joseph was in charge of the country. He sold grain to all its people. His brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the ground. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he treated them like strangers and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "From the land of Canaan to buy food," they replied. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Joseph remembered his dream about them and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the weakness of the land." "No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food," they said. "We are all sons of one man. We are honest. Your servants are not spies." "No," he said to them, "you have come to see the weakness of the land." But they replied, "We are your servants. We're 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no longer living." And Joseph said to him, "I have spoken. You are spies. This is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless the youngest brother comes here. Send one from among you to get your brother. The rest of you will be imprisoned so that your words can be tested to see if they are true. If they are not, then it is as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies." So Joseph imprisoned them together for 3 days. On the third day, Joseph said to them, "I fear God. Do this and you will live. If you are honest, let one of you be confined to the guardhouse, while the rest of you go and take grain to relieve the hunger of your households. Bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words can be confirmed. Then you won't die." And then they consented to this. They then said to each other, "Obviously, we are being punished for what we did to our brother. We saw his deep distress when he pleaded with us, but we would not listen. That is why this trouble has come to us." But Reuben replied, "Didn't I tell you not to harm the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must account for his blood." They did not recognize that Joseph understood them, since there was an interpreter between him. He turned away from them and wept. He turned back and spoke to them. He took Simon, or maybe it's Simeon or Simon, from them and had him bound before their eyes. Joseph then gave orders to fill the containers with grain, return to each man's silver to his sack, and give the prisoners provisions for their journey. This order was carried out, and they loaded the grain on their donkeys and left there. Now the brothers are returning home now. At the place where they were lodged for the night, one of them opened the sack to get feed for his donkey, and he saw his silver there at the top of his bag. He said to his brothers, "My silver has been returned. It's here in my bag." Their hearts sank. Trembling, they turned to one another and said, "What is this that God has done to us?" When they reached their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that happened to them. "The man who is the Lord of our country spoke harshly to us and accused us of spying on the country. But we told him we are honest, not spies. We were 12 brothers, sons of the same father. One is no longer living, and the youngest is now with the father in the land of Canaan. But the man who is the Lord of the country said to us, 'This is how I will know you are honest. Leave one brother with me, and take the food to relieve your hunger of your households, and go and bring back your youngest brother to me, and I will know that you are not spies but honest men. I will give your brother back to you, and you can trade him in the country.' As they began emptying their sacks, in each man's sack was a bag of silver. When they and their father saw the bag of silver, they were afraid. Their father Jacob said to them, 'It's me that you make childless. Joseph is gone, and Simeon is gone. Simon is gone. Now you want to take Benjamin? Everything happens to me.' Then Reuben said to his father, 'You can kill my 2 sons if I don't bring him back to you. Put him in my care. I will return him to you.' But Jacob answered, 'My son will not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If anything happens to him on your journey, you will bring my gray hairs down to Sheol in sorrow.'" Dang, I kind of want to keep reading, but I should stop right now because I don't want to overload. But dang, this is getting good. We'll do one more chapter. 43. Now the famine is pretty short. Now the famine in the land was severe, and when they had used up the grain they had brought back from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go back and buy us a little food." But Judah said to them, "The man specifically warned us, 'You will not see me again unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy food for you. But if you will not send him, we will not go. For the man said to us, you will not see me again unless your brother is with you.' Why have you caused me so much trouble?" Israel asked. Why did you not why did you tell the man that you had another brother? They answered, the man kept asking about us and our family. Is your father still alive? Do you have another brother? And we answered him accordingly. How could we know that he would say, bring your brother here? Then Judah said to his father Israel, send the boy with me. We will be on our way so that we may live and not die. Neither we nor you nor our dependents. I will be responsible for him, and you could hold me personally accountable. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, I will be guilty before you forever. If we had not delayed, we could have come back twice by now. Then the father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Put some of the best products of the land on your back and your packs, and take them down take them down to the man as a gift. A little balsam and a little honey, aromatic gum, and resin, pistachios, and almonds. Take twice as much silver with you. Return that silver that was returned to top of your bags. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother. Also, go back at once to the man. May God Almighty cause the man to be merciful to you, so that you will release your brother and Benjamin to you. As for me, I am deprived of my sons. Then I'm deprived. So they returned to Egypt. The men took this gift, double the amount of silver in Benjamin. They immediately went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward, take the men to my house, slaughter an animal and prepare it, for they will eat with me at noon. The man did as Joseph had said and brought them to Joseph's house. But the men were afraid because they were taken to Joseph's house. They said, we've been brought here because of the silver that was returned in our bags the first time. They intend to overpower us and seize us and make us slaves and take our donkeys. So they approached Joseph's steward and spoke to him at the doorway of the house. They said, my lord, we really did come down here the first time only to buy food. When we came to the place where we lodged for the night and opened our bags of grain, each one's silver was at the top of his bag. It was full amount of silver that we had brought back with us. We have brought additional silver with us to buy food. We don't know who put the silver in our bags. Then the steward said, may you be well. Don't be afraid. Your God and the God of your father must put treasure in your bags. I have received your silver. Then I brought Simeon or Simon out of them. The steward brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water to wash their feet and got feed for their donkeys. Since the men had heard that they were going to eat a meal there, they prepared a gift for Joseph's arrival at noon. When Joseph came, they brought him the gift that they carried into the house and bowed to the ground before him. He asked if they were all well, and he said, how is your elderly father that you told me about? Is he still alive? They answered, your servant, our father, is well. He is still alive. And they knelt low and paid homage to him. When he looked up and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, he asked, is this your youngest brother that you told me about? Then they said, may God be gracious to you, my son. Joseph hurried out because he was overcome with emotion from his brother, and he was about to weep. He went into the inner room and wept there. Then he washed his face and came out, regaining his composure, and said, serve the meal. They served him by himself, his brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians who were eating with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat with Hebrews, since that is detestable to them. They were seated before him in order by age, from the firstborn to the youngest. The men looked at each other in astonishment. Portions were served to them from Joseph's table, and Benjamin's portion was 5 times larger than any of theirs. They drank and became drunk with Joseph. Dang, chapter 44 is going to be good because it's about the final test that Joseph is going to do. But we're going to stop right there, and we'll get back to this tomorrow. But it's getting good, guys. It's getting good.